Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space for all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We have a thought piece scheduled to drop this upcoming Sunday, so definitely be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available wherever podcasts are playing. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post, and of course, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis, and today's topic of discussion is education. On the topic of education, I'm going to be talking about the relationship we have with learning, more specifically the relationship that we have with the learning curve. And much like a standard relationship that you have with someone else, there are highs and lows to it. And a lot of the times we find ourselves discouraged if we haven't really cultivated awareness around how we learn, around the cycle of learning, and around the emotions that go with our climb and our ascent up and through that learning curve. And so I find that this is hilarious, this is funny, because as I learn new things, it never changes. I always catch myself by surprise, but in hindsight I recognize this is totally my learning process. This is my relationship with learning, and my relationship with learning, much like any healthy relationship, has some highs and lows. There are some moments of doubt, there are some moments where I'm really not quite sure, but you hold on, you push through, and you make it from the other side. And so many of us have very different relationships with learning. I was raised in an environment where education was paramount, and I was always told that if there was one thing you want to be reliant on, a concrete and tangible thing to be reliant on, is your intelligence. And so because of that, one of my biggest issues with learning is that I believe that I'm intelligent. And the reason why that's an issue is because pride always comes before the fall, and one of my biggest hang-ups with learning is the pridefulness that I have to deal with to be able to adequately learn. There's often the pride, there's the hits to your ego that will make you cut that journey shorter than it should be, because learning takes its own time, right? Depending on your aptitude for the area that you're learning, depending on your natural competency, your natural ability to kind of grasp those concepts. Like, you can't predict how much time it's going to take for you to acquire those skill sets, but I know that when I know something, I perform really, really well. And so I often skip the part of the learning where there's lots of trial and failure, emphasis in the failure. There's lots of confusion, there's lots of missed turns, there's lots of missteps. And oftentimes it's my pride that keeps me bouncing back. Like, I'm so prideful about the fact that I know that I'm smart, I know that I'm gonna get this, but I make a lot of easy to prevent errors, I would say, because I just have too much confidence. And often is the beating down of that confidence, it is the breaking down of that pride. and the bloom of humility that comes with falling so many times up that learning curve where the learning starts to flourish. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because a lot of us, we bail out sooner than what we're supposed to because of the pride before the fall. And learning is a humbling process. It is a process that teaches us lots of humility, especially if we're learning in an area where we're not naturally competent. But don't sell yourself short. Don't bow out of that race because you're not picking it up as quickly as you want to, or because you're like me, where you value yourself as being an intelligent human being, and it is difficult to be confronted with the potential that that might not be true. And oftentimes when your learning is really elevated, when you're really like building a skill set that is novel to you, you're going to have these moments of time where you doubt yourself, where you're like, well, you know, I was told my whole life, and I've told myself my whole life I'm intelligent. Like, is that false? Was it all a lie? And I find that these moments in hindsight are so comedic because they're true periods of desperation and despair. But I always get through them. And how I get through them is I take off the hat of pride and I put on the hat of humility, because the hat of humility helps me take a look at my mistakes rather than judge myself for my mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And I'm unable to learn from those mistakes when I'm in a state of pride, where my ego is hurt and when I just need to lick my wound for a moment. But when I have that opportunity, that wake-up call where I'm like, listen, like, I can do better than this. I know that this is a learning curve and there's a gap, but I can perform better than how I'm performing despite the fact that I'm learning. But it is only when I give myself the space to have clarity on like what are the actual pitfalls, because they're often the same things. There's often assumptions that I'm making or judgment calls that I'm making wrongly, but I can always pinpoint when I really take a step back and assess my own progress or lack thereof. I can build myself a learning plan and build up the areas where if I fill in those gaps, my performance will increase exponentially. And so I really want to talk about this emotional relationship with learning that is juxtaposed between pride and humility. And we often don't talk about that, but there's a lot of pride and humility at play. And if we're very prideful about who we are as we approach learning, it can be the reason why we get discouraged or why we beat ourselves up for not getting things right. And I'm talking from personal experience. And again, like, I am a learner, I am a lifelong learner. I love grappling and tackling new topics, whether it's learning a new art form, a new expression, whether it's doing something new and stepping out of my comfort zone. A lot of that is really fun, and I love the way that it pulls at my way of thinking. But sometimes when you're learning and people are counting on you and you need to perform, and you're not performing the way you know you can, that can be really very debilitating. It can be very discouraging. And so oftentimes it's interesting because I've not been able to like cut the part out where my pride is really the reason why I'm not succeeding as quickly as I could be. There has to be this period where I am dealing with public scorn because of some of the mistakes that I'm making, and it's public scorn that brings about the humility that allows me to then really take a step back, do an analysis as to what I've done up until that point that has hindered my learning or that has helped my learning, and what I can ramp up on so that I can start to perform. So I want to give that tidbit of advice here to you, that learning isn't this thing that happens in a vacuum, right? Where we're just cerebral, we're just these intellectual minds at play, tackling a topic and proving our competency to the world. There are a lot of emotions that are involved in learning, and I like to liken it to a relationship, because sometimes my relationship with learning can take a hostile turn. Like, I can be really very mean to myself, I can be unkind to myself when my learning doesn't look like how I envisioned it. And I always envision myself hitting the ground running. I always start off learning with so much confidence, and I know that a lot of people, it's the opposite. They start off learning with so little confidence, and they give themselves small little steps to move forward. And because of that, because they're playing it carefully, because they're more conservative, they don't fail as hard as I do, because I start with so much confidence, with overconfidence. I take these massive leaps and I'm so confident about it, and it's really like the breaking down of my confidence that enables me now to grow and to learn. And I think that we're all going to approach learning differently depending on the home setting that we had, depending on our values around learning, our values around ourselves and learning, the amount of security that we have in learning. And I'm a secure learner, I have to say, but it doesn't change the fact that learning will beat me up a lot. And it beats me up in, I think, a good way, because it reminds me that I'm as fallible as the rest of them. It is never helpful when I approach something with overconfidence, and yet it's always the way that I approach things because of how I've been built up around learning. A lot of my self-esteem self-esteem was around learning, around my ability to learn, around being told that I was intelligent, but even choosing the things that I want to excel in and choosing the things that I would prefer to kind of learn in my own way and in my own path. Like I have a lot of confidence around my capacity to learn. My whole life has been revolved around learning, whether that's in the academic arena, the social arena, learning my own self, healing, whether that's fitness, like everything that I put my time and attention into involves learning to some extent. And so that also gives us an opportunity to see ourselves. And I think that when you are in an environment where you're a learner, where you're essentially at the bottom of the totem pole, especially when you're surrounded by experts, it's easy to want to just jump and find yourself at that level of expertise. But that takes time, it takes experience, it takes hard knocks, and there is a cost to expertise. And I think that oftentimes we want to just be the expert, be the bright shining star without paying the cost. And a lot of the costs are the failures. They're the trials by fire where you're mostly getting burned. They're the opportunities where you need to humble yourself and experience that level of humility so that you can give yourself the appropriate foundation to really learn something and not just be the imposter in the room and pretend like you know things and kind of operate from a place of bravado, but really do know things. And so because I do want to learn, because I am interested in learning and not just showing up as being competent, but actually developing competency in a specific area, I think that this is a process, an emotional process that we all need to take for what it is, right? And I think that a lot of us think that learning is in a vacuum. It happens only in very specific settings, and in other settings we can kind of take off our learner's hat and take the pressure off. Whereas I think that learning is something that can be applicable in any setting. Like if you approach life with this growth mindset, then you can learn so much about yourself in the smallest, most insignificant interaction. And even the way that I interact with my environment on my walk to and from point A or point B, there's so much to learn even in that short walk. And so I think that it's important to come on here and talk about the emotional aspect of learning and talking about like where do you sit in that spectrum between pride and humility, and how much is it that your pride is giving you a hard time, and embracing the humility required to really learn, to kind of put yourself at the stage of a learner and seek support, guidance, not just from like the people above you who are experts, but from all of the resources around us. We're in the digital revolution. We have the resources at our fingertips to learn everything and anything. So don't let your ego, your bruised ego, get in the way. Learning is accessible to everyone and anyone if you simply apply yourself and develop the awareness between pride and humility, and make sure that your pride isn't your biggest pitfall and the reason why you sell out short and you duck out before you should if you're learning something new and you're having a hard time. I've always valued learning the things that were the most challenging up front. Even though the experience can be very arduous, can be very painful, I can be very emotional about it, I don't want to walk away from something that is really, really hard to learn, because I find that I feel so great about myself once I've learned it. And once I reach that pivotal moment where you see that you've reached the edge of that learning curve, and there's always that steep climb. It's like, if this is the learning curve, there's always that one part of that learning curve that's like the hardest and the most emotional, where you have your rock bottom by way of like your existential, like, am I the person I thought I was if I'm not able to grasp this concept? Where the humility starts to come about, and then from there you curve the edge and you're starting to perform better than you thought, and everyone now is doubting that you could. And so I want to have that conversation because I just reached that bridging point, and I didn't have an emotional turn before I reached it. But I'm feeling really good today. I'm feeling really confident. And I really want to talk about that insight, or that sort of self-reflection that I've had around how pride can be really a problem, a stumbling block when it comes to learning, and how humility is often the solution to giving yourself the opportunity to learn something new, to learn something that's really challenging, really novel, really outside of your general skill set, and to take that leap and to make that shift if you are finding that it is your bruised ego that's keeping you from getting to where you know you need to be and you can be. In any case, that was the topic for today. Definitely it, but not all. Now before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month on our website, so definitely be sure to tune in. Now these events are paid events, so buy your one-time ticket, or if you do like it, you can definitely check out our membership plans. Yes, so we do offer membership plans that give you access to webinars, workshops, largely focused on self-mastery over and above these live events that we host. So definitely check it out. Be part of our game changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. Now we are on the road to 1K, so we do invite you to follow us across all of our social media platforms, and we look forward to chatting with all